ARE Podcast, episode number 1.
Welcome to the ARE Podcast. Where it's all about encouraging and inspiring you today so you can fulfill your dream of becoming a licensed architect tomorrow. And now your host. He spent 8 years in architecture school, David Doucette.
Hello. That's right. I did spend 8 years in architecture school. I could have been a doctor at this stage, but I decided to become an architect instead. I went to Wentworth in Boston for 2 years, and then I liked the program at the Boston Architectural Center, so I transferred over there. And actually, the Boston Architectural College, which our co-host we're going to introduce you to shortly, does a little teaching over there. So welcome to our first episode. Really excited about launching this episode and architectexamprep.com and introducing you to our co-founders because we just have a lot of cool stuff going on. So we have Eric Corey Freed, who is joining us from Palm Springs, California, and Aubrey Baracchio is joining us from Orange County. And welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Good morning.
And not only are you, well, you're not guests on the show, I guess I should say. You guys, the three of us have co-founded and created architectexamprep.com. So what I'll do first, Eric, is I'm going to throw it to you and let you do a self-introduction. And if you can make yourself not sound pompous, let's see if you can do that.
That might be hard, but my name is Eric Corey Freed. I'm an architect. For the last 22 years, I've been working in green building and education, and the three of us saw an opportunity to improve the study materials for architectural candidates, and so I'm very excited to finally release what we've been working on for so long.
That's very modest. And so I will add then that you are a published author. You've written Green Building for Dummies and Green Sense and a couple other books. So you're our writing guy. You're the brains behind the operation, maybe.
And the good looks, too.
And the good looks, exactly.
and the muscle.
And the muscle.
Actually, I don't know what I need YouTube for.
Yeah, exactly. And then, Aubrey, why don't you give us an introduction?
Well, my name is Aubrey Baracchio. I am a recently licensed architect in the state of California. I passed my final exams in 2012. So I'm sort of the greenest one in the group, but having recently gone through all of the AREs, I can sympathize with everyone going through them right now. So I think I help bring that empathetic approach of exactly what everyone is dealing with, and just really want to help try to get people through this process because I know how grueling it was, and I wish I had a support team there for me. So that's really been my driving goal of wanting to get involved in this little venture we're on right now.
Aubrey's the compassionate one.
And you guys are both so modest. Aubrey, you passed the AREs in how long?
The 7 AREs in about 4.5 months, and then the CSE I had to take twice, so that delayed the process a little bit. But
yeah, 4.5 months.
In total, it was about a year.
Right. So 4.5 months for the ARE, which is pretty incredible. I took a lot longer than that. We'll save that for another day. But yeah, so I think the three of us, and we're all licensed in California. And for those of you that don't know, is California being California, it's not enough to just take the 7 AREs. California then says, okay, you have to take our special exam, or they call it the California Supplemental Exam, before we grant you the license. So there's an extra step there if you want to practice in California, and it can be considered, I guess, the holy grail of architects' licenses because it's difficult. It's a difficult exam. I think the pass rate is around 55%. So it's difficult, which will segue into, I created CaliforniaSupplementalExam.com a few years ago, teaching candidates how to prepare for the California Supplemental Exam, and then that segued into wanting to do something for the AREs, which segued into bringing Aubrey and Eric into the mix here because, as you know, there's 7 divisions to the exam, and to create the study materials, I of course needed help and found the 2 best people I know to do that. So Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about, I guess, the package that we've put together?
Well, when we started looking at what would we want out on an exam prep site, what materials would we need, first we looked at what was already available, and I looked around at everything, and frankly, they were boring. I was kind of shocked because I took the exam a long time ago. When I took it, there were 9 pieces. That's how long ago I took it, and I got through it in 18 weeks, by the way. So,
Holy cow.
So
the modesty, you guys are becoming less modest as we go on.
I'm over that now, but what was fascinating to me was I remember specifically studying on these old hand-me-down books that were photocopied and printed and dog-eared and ragged, and they were from the 70s and 80s, and they were spiral bound and disgusting to touch. But they were, the thinking was, well, they're good enough, they'll help you pass. But they were terrible, they were boring, and it was excruciating to study. And my shock was when Aubrey was studying for the exam, and then when she passed and she showed us her current brand new shiny materials, they were pretty much the same as what they were in the 70s and 80s. They were just reprinted. That was it. So I felt strongly that it needed a little modernization, a little updating, and maybe also throw a little fun in the mix. Because as I've learned from 15 years of teaching, it helps you remember things when you're enjoying it.
And you do have that sort of oddball sense of humor that I think can be endearing, and so anything that appears funny in the guidebook, that's probably Eric, and anything that appears not funny is probably Eric as well. So
yeah, and anything that takes a long time is probably you.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, we found a good way to work well with each other. And it's funny, we came together about a year and a half ago, and we had grand plans of just, meeting a year and a half ago, 2 months we're going to release SPD and follow suit with the other ones. And here we are a year and a half later, and we're just getting ready or just released SPD. So it's taken a long time to get this stuff together, and I think the 3 of us underestimated the task that we put before us.
Well, I don't think we underestimated. I think we just had a high standard. We wanted it to be as great as we knew it could be. So, the first round of stuff was probably as good as what's available now, and now on the 8th iteration of what we have, it's so far superior. It just in terms of quality, in terms of aesthetics, and it just in terms of layout. I mean, the package that we put together, the ultimate full enchilada package, first of all, blows the competition away. But that was by design. We saw what everybody was offering, the price they were offering, and we just improved on it at every level. So whether it's our study guide, whether it's the vignette review guide, whether it's the vignette do-it-yourself workbook, whether it's the flashcards, the online exam simulator. I mean, I'm running out of air here saying it all. So it's it's the package. It's bittersweet because it's the package I wish that I had when I was studying, but didn't. But it's the package that I would want to have today.
It is a cool package, and not that this is supposed to sound like a commercial for the Ultimate Whole Enchilada, which it's not. And as you get to know us, you'll understand that it's not. But we wanted to create something that we wish we had when we took the exam. And there's a guidebook, a workbook, and like Eric said. And one thing I think that Eric didn't say is the audio companion, which I'll tell you is a really powerful tool. And I discovered this because I created one for the CSEprep.com. So we wanted to create a package that is interactive and it's fun, and you can you can use it in multiple facets on your iPad, your iPhone. You can listen to it, you can read it, you can watch it with our videos. So it's a really cool package, I think, that is up to date how people study. People study on the go. We're not going to a quiet place anymore and just sitting down in a room. We're on the go. We're doing more multitasking. So we tried to adapt to that. And
I have to.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, David. Oh, I have to give a lot of kudos to the Audio Companion as well. That was the one item you offered with your CSC package that nobody else had, and I actually found that the most valuable when studying for the CSE, because I could turn it on while I was doing housework or at the gym or in the car, wherever I was, and repetition, you hear those terms and stories and things over and over again, and they just sink into your brain in a way that reading a guide doesn't necessarily do. So I wished the entire time I'd had something like that for the AREs. It just would have been a great additional alternative to studying.
I also think as architects, we tend to think much more visually and much more orally, AU or oral, right? So hearing it really helps it stick in your memory. Plus, you've got the triple redundancy of you're reading it on paper, you're hearing it on the podcast, and then you're seeing all the visual graphics that we've created for it.
It's funny that you mention that, because I've had people in the CSE seminars that I do that they'll come up to me afterwards and say, I wasn't really into the Audio Companion at first because I'm a visual person. And I think we're all visual people, especially as architects. But then they get into it and they really like it. And it is, I guess, the Audio Companion. It's not just. It is audio, but it helps. I think it helps your visual senses. The way it interacts with your brain.
I think it also makes you feel like someone else is there with you. I mean, David, you hear your voice for 8 hours, and it feels like you've got your own private tutor, or somebody else who's going on the journey with you. And you add all those sound clips and personal stories and whatnot. And I think it helps break it up and make it more enjoyable to listen to.
I want to shift gears for a second here. Oh, you know what I want to do, actually? I got these cool... Where'd they go? Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Plan, practice, and pass with architectexamprep.com.
All right, I just had to throw that stinger in there. So, Eric, let me throw it over to you. Our first blog post that we put up on our website talked about focus and motivation, inspiration, discipline, confidence, and success, which in some respects are generic sort of terms that we use when we're setting goals, but they're very applicable to passing the AREs. So, Eric, let me throw focus to you. What do you think of when you think of focus, or how would focus apply to taking the AREs?
I'm glad you brought that up. So, focus is a great it's a great concept for architects, because I think so often we're trained to be reactive, right? It starts in school. Teacher gives you a crit, says change this and this, we react to it. Then we go into start working for someone else, and they're telling us what to do, and we react to it. And instead of reacting, we should be responding. We should be thinking carefully about what we want to do, and then making a careful response. That's the definition of being a professional. And that starts with having a focus. The focus of what your bigger goal is. Your goal should be not just to pass the test, but your goal should be to pass it quickly. And if anything, I think, I was the first class, I don't know about you, but I was the first class that did the exam on the computer. It was the first year they transitioned from offering it once a year in June at the local convention center, where thousands of people would show up with T-squares, to, okay, we're going to do it on the computer now. So I got to be that kind of experimental first class. And if anything, I think it's hurt the profession, because this idea that you could take the test anytime and make it convenient has forced everybody just to take a lot longer to take it. There was this beauty in having this focused deadline. I got to take the test every June, or otherwise I don't want to wait a whole other year.
Yeah, and I was actually part of that first class. I think it was around 1998, because I had just moved to New York, and I took programming as my first exam, because there was 9 back then. And of course, I was in my 20s. I worked for many years in Boston because that was part of the program of the BAC. So I was a little cocky. I was a little arrogant. So I didn't really study. I was like, programming, I don't need to study for that, And of course, I didn't pass it. And then that just took the wind out of my sails. And I don't think I took another exam for a couple of years. But getting back to focus, I wasn't focused on it at all. And, if we don't have focus, we drift a little bit.
I made it part of my daily routine. I said, there's 9 exams. I'm going to take one 2 weeks apart. So I said, I'll have no life for 18 weeks. And then after 18 weeks, I can go back to going to movies and having friends and having a social life. But for these 18 weeks, let's just get through it. It's a hurdle that I want to get over. And it was that focus, and that really really helped. And the beauty of it was that I by the end of it, I fell into a rhythm of studying for a week, taking the test, and then kind of resting for a week, and then studying again. And I would receive the results usually right before I was about to go in for the next test. Pass, and then that. I had the opposite experience because that experience of passing each one on the first try. I'm not bragging. I mean, I just passed each one on the first try. But that really added wind to my sails. That really got me going. Seeing that little letter come from NCARB, and it's you open it up, and first of all, it's poorly designed, that letter, because you have to kind of search. Did I pass or fail? It's not. It should come with the giant green pass thing on it. And that was another thing, is that the whole experience in taking the test is stressful. You're nauseated. You're worried you're going to poop your pants when you're in the. It's like there's all this. It's stressful. It's probably one of the most stressful things you'll do in your life, compared to getting married or something. Or dying. But it's such a stressful thing that we thought, if we can add a little fun to it, if we can make it. If we can be the soothing voice, if we can be your mentors, and we can do that through the audio podcast, through the books, through the videos, and we even forgot to mention all the other stuff that we've added in terms of the video walkthroughs. I think just following our program, staying focused, and getting through it as quick as possible, and passing. First of all, why stretch it out? Why tug at that Band-Aid a little bit? Just rip it off and get it done over with.
I have to jump in here because you guys are sounding less modest as we go on. So, Eric, how many weeks? You did it in 18 weeks?
I did it in 18 weeks. I scheduled them all 2 weeks apart, and I figured, okay, if I fail any of them, I'll just take them again at the end.
Okay, so you did it in 18 weeks. Aubrey did it in 4 months for the ARE. So I just don't want people to think that we are high on the hog here. And I'll fess up now. I started in 98, and I don't think I finished until probably 2004 or 2005. So I was it took me 6 or 7 years to go through it. And it was mainly finding the time to sit down and study. So focus was my big thing. I didn't pass programming the first time, and I think I missed building and technology, or I forget what it was called then, the last exam. But I would go period of 2 years and not do anything. So I just want people to understand that the normal is not doing this in 4 months or 18 weeks. So.
I think I was a little blessed, so to speak, with the recession hitting right after I graduated from school, because 6 months after I graduated, I found myself out of a job and looking for work and engaged to be married and all of these things going on. So, I just discussed with my fiance at the time, and I said, what do I do? Do I go back to work? Do I find another entry-level job, or do I take this time and focus and get my license? And he said, absolutely, get your license. So we got married, got through all of that. Then I started studying basically December of 2011, I believe, and took my first test January 4th or 5th or something, first week in January. And I was done before, my goal was to be done before my birthday, and I took my last test like 3 days before my birthday. And same as Eric, I just passed each one of them on the first try, but I had the fortunate circumstance where I had no reason not to study for 8 hours a day and take each one 3 weeks apart, because I had nothing else to do. That was my job for 4.5 months, was studying for these exams. So I think that's a situation not everyone finds themselves in. Most people are balancing work, life, families, all of that kind of stuff. I was lucky enough not to have that, but I definitely took advantage of it as much as I could.
I just want to say, if it wasn't for me, people would have turned you guys off by now. We're supposed to, help them focus and motivate and inspire. And I did it in 16 weeks. I did it in 18 weeks. I mean, that is motivational.
You have to realize we're like those testimonials on late night TV where you see people lost 80 pounds.
Totally.
In 30 days.
You can totally do it in 30 days. But I also think it's important. It's an important lesson because I have friends that thought, construction documents, I don't need to study for that.
Right.
I'm a pro at construction documents, and they go in and they fail. You can't pass this test cold. You just can't do it.
Well, and I think
none of the sections will work that way. I mean, the way the multiple choice questions are written, you've got to go through, at the very least, go through our exam simulator and study guide, and then you'll get into the habit of understanding how they ask the questions and what they're looking for.
Well, I think part of this too, and I realize this with the CSC, but certainly for the ARE as well, part of what we're learning to do in this process is learning how to pass a test. Irrespective of what the content is, it's like just taking multiple choice tests. There's a methodology, there's practice in learning how to take the test, looking for the word, because some of these tests are poorly written. Some of the questions come out of nowhere, and it's how do you handle yourself on exam day, so you can figure that stuff out. The one thing I'll say about focus before we leave focus is, yes, it's nice to focus and knock this out in 18 weeks, but I'm more of a long-term focus kind of person because I didn't knock it out in 18 weeks. But I see this with a CSC. I think the focus is getting through the exam, getting through all 7 AREs, regardless of how long it takes you. And I say that because we all have our off days. Some of us are not going to pass on the first time. But the main thing is, and I think what builds our character is just hanging in until we get it. And I tell people with the CSC, pass or fail, just take the exam and, pick up the pieces, start studying again. Aubrey went through that with the CSC. She had to take it twice. And you just hang in there and you do it. So when I'm thinking focus, that's where I come from. Focus, I'm just going to do this until I'm done. Where Eric is more, I'm just going to do this and knock this out in 18 weeks, which is fine. It's just two different definitions of focus.
No, I think my thought was, I don't want this to take any longer than it has to.
Right.
I want my life to begin. I want to get licensed. I want to start a firm. I want to be a professional. I want to be an adult. I wanted to get through it as quickly as possible. Would I do it again at 18 weeks? No, probably not. It was a grueling. It was like doing a marathon. It was a very grueling 18 weeks, and I remember not doing anything like intellectual after that for a while. I didn't even want to go to serious movies after that. For a while. I didn't want nothing. I didn't want anything heavy. I wanted it to be very light. But I also had these old tattered guides. That were hand-me-downs that were gross, and I felt like I was in the wilderness. I mean, I didn't know if I was studying the right stuff. That was the worst part. I hope this is on the exam. I would say that a third of what I studied wasn't on the exam at all because my guides were out of date. They weren't updated. They were poorly done, and I left every single one of those 9 exams. My friends would say, "So did you pass?" And I would go, I had no idea, and plus you don't know if you passed by like a sliver or if I got an A. So,
right. Well, that's still, I think that's still applicable to candidates taking the exam today. I mean, you just walk out there and you just don't know. And I will tell you, which is great about the CSE now, is they give you instant results. So that's pretty cool. You take your test, you get up from the computer, you walk out to the hall, and then they will hand you the pass or fail letter, which I think is pretty cool. I wish the AREs could adopt that. So, Aubrey, I want to throw it over to you for a word, motivation, and how motivation, how you think about motivation.
I think for me, I mean, my own personal story obviously is going to be a little different than both of you, not only on how I got through all of the exams, but for me personally, my biggest motivation to get my license was being a female in a male-dominated industry. I wanted to be taken seriously. I didn't want to be looked at as just, oh, how cute, she wants to be an architect. You know, I wanted it to be like, no, this is what I want to do. This is my career. This is my passion. So I figured after school, the next step is licensure. I have to get my license because I have to be seen as someone who's serious about this, wants to make it a career, wants to excel. And I've communicated that with, with my supervisors at work. They know what track I want to be on, and they know that for me, this isn't just a job. This is a career. This is something I plan to do for the rest of my life. So that was my biggest motivator was, this is the goal that I've always wanted my entire life, and getting there was just whatever I had to do to get it. And I had an extremely supportive network of family and friends. They were all behind me and celebrating every success and picking me up after every failure. And unlike Eric, I actually waited to open those test results until after an exam because I didn't want to have my mojo thrown if it was a fail. So, but yeah, that honestly, that was my biggest motivation to get through all of this.
Actually, so impressive.
Yeah, and for those of you who may not realize this, how difficult the CSE is, but to become a licensed architect in California, as we talked about, is it's a big deal. But Aubrey was able to do that before her 30th birthday, which there's not a whole lot of architects that are able to do it in California that quickly.
Yeah, I was. I think I actually passed the CSE a month before my 29th birthday. So I was pretty happy about that. That was a great early birthday gift, and that was my goal, was to be licensed before I was 30. So I was able to meet that. I know that's a huge aspiration for a lot of people, especially when you're not finishing school till you're in your mid-20s, and then, if you've got a family or you've got work or whatever going on. But that was my biggest goal, was inside of 5 years after I got out of school, I wanted to be licensed.
Eric, I want to throw inspiration over to you, and where do you draw your inspiration from, or sort of what inspires you in terms of how you're working in architecture?
I don't know. As I get older, the answer changes quite a bit, but I would say now the answer has as much to do with my daughter as it did with myself, because when I was taking the exams, I was young, I was single, I didn't have any responsibility except for myself, and I was just fixated on this goal of passing and getting off on my own and getting my life started. That was the feeling that I had, was that my life was incomplete, kind of like Aubrey, and my life was incomplete until I got my stupid license. Basically, that was the mindset, and so. My inspiration was this vision of the future, this vision I had of what my life could be like, but it was really up to me. And I know what it's like to be your own worst enemy. I know what it's like to kind of say, I'll postpone the exam. I'll wait. You have all those kind of lingering doubts, those fears, all that stress, and it's very easy just to say no. In fact, no is the easiest thing you can do. But I wanted to get through them all. Even if I failed one, let's just go through them all. Let's see what it's like. I was mentally prepared for failing, but I wasn't mentally prepared for quitting. I really just wanted to pass them all and study for them and know that I studied in earnest. That was kind of my goal. It was, and I'm not one of those like rah kind of guys normally. I just, to me, this my entire life was waiting for this to go, and I have friends now, and I think about these friends. There were three in particular that I thought about while we were writing, our exam materials, especially the study guide. I kind of had them in mind as I was writing, because they've already finished their 5-year rolling clock and had to start again.
Wow.
They've let it drag on for going on a decade. So to me, if you want to be inspired, just imagine how great life will be once you get your license. Once you can open up all those career pathways, once you can, actually be eligible for a raise at your firm, for all the wonderful things that come with it. just visualize the success of it, and then go and do it. And if you fail one, so what? You'll go back and take it again. But just schedule the darn thing and study for it, and go in there knowing that you're as prepared as you can be.
Well,
I think our materials really enable you to do that.
Well, and I think, not only sort of the materials, but one of the reasons I think all three of us came together to create what we're creating here is, through the podcast and through written blog posts and through our video tips, which are all on our website. It is to help candidates stay motivated. It's helped to inspire candidates. I wish I had this, 10 years ago, because I wouldn't have taken 7 years to finish this. So I think there's a need for this support for candidates. There's this need for I think for candidates to have a place they can come for a little motivation or a little inspiration, or listen to something that might inspire them. And I think all three of us have different backgrounds and different stories. And I think as we do more podcasts and as we write more blog posts, people will get to know us and hopefully, draw something from that might help them or motivate them in what they're doing with the AREs.
There's an old story, and I'm paraphrasing it, but when the explorer Cortez arrived at the New World, his men got off the ships and encountered this violent opposition from the Indians, what they called Indians, Native Americans. And the men started to flee back to the ships and run away. And Cortez set fire to his ships and burned them, sunk them into the sea. And his men looked at him and said, "What are you, nuts? Now you've doomed us all." And he said, "No, now I've given you no choice. Now you have to fight." And I think that's what you got to do with the test. I think you need to burn your ships. I think mentally you really need to focus on this idea that I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to reschedule the exam. I mean, if anything, NCAR makes it too easy to just call and schedule the date when you want it and schedule in the future. Just set a goal for yourself that, like Aubrey did. Before I'm 30, I want to do this. Before I'm 35, I want to do this. Before you're old and gray like David and me, you want to do this and get it done, and burn your ships and really make a goal for yourself that you're going to study, you're going to plan, you're going to study, and you're going to pass. That's what you need to do.
And it is interesting. I think it has become easier since really it's been multiple choice format, which they started back somewhere around 98, because we can just schedule whenever we want. So it's not like when it was twice a year before, you had to be ready. And same thing with the CSE. It used to be oral, and they would do it 5 or 6 times a year. So people would just pick a date, pick one of those dates. And when they changed that to multiple choice a couple of years ago, now people can schedule whenever they want. And it's easier to become complacent when you can just schedule it whenever you want. You can reschedule it, pay a small fee. So yeah, I like your analogy of burning your ships and just doing it. Aubrey, let me throw discipline to you, because you were able to do this all, including the CSE, before your 29th birthday. You did it in 4 months. So what advice would you give for discipline?
I think the biggest thing that helped me was having a schedule and sticking to it. I mean, since I wasn't working at the time, I was able to dedicate between 6 and 8 hours every day to studying. So I actually made a schedule, much like as if I had a job, where, I'd get up at the same time every day. I would, have a morning routine. I'd eat breakfast or go on a run or whatever I needed to do to get my day started. And then at the same time every morning, I would start studying. I would have a plan of, okay, this week I'm going to focus on multiple choice, and I'd go through all the multiple choice, and I'd break it up into different sections every day, and I'd have a break for lunch, and then I'd have my afternoon session, and then I would end by the time my husband came home. And in the evenings it was our time. Evenings, that was my time off, was at nights that we could spend time together, and on the weekends. So I did give myself breaks, and I think that's really important. You have to make this a goal, but you can't make it your entire life. I think there has to be some balance in there. So I was fortunate enough to focus during the day so that I could have my evenings and weekends to myself and my family and my friends, to a limited degree anyway. So I think that really helped keep me motivated, focused, disciplined on the goal. But I also, with that family support network, my husband was great. He would come home every night and he would quiz me. He'd say, what did you learn today? What did you study today? He'd pull out my flashcards. He'd go through them with me, and he held me accountable ultimately. Because if I decided, oh, I don't want to study today, I just want to goof off, I want to, go to the beach or, go shopping or go to Disneyland or something like that, I had someone who at the end of the day, if I hadn't done my study work, he was going to be mad at me, and then I would feel like I disappointed someone. So I think the accountability really helps keep you motivated. Having someone there who is, going to celebrate with you and going to push you and keep you focused, keep you in line, so to speak.
Yeah, I think having somebody accountable and involving somebody else in the process definitely helps. So I think we're going to actually wrap it up today. I think all of us could keep talking more, but we're going to do a lot more podcasts. We're going to do a lot more video tips and written blog posts, and continue to share our own personal trials and tribulations, and give advice on taking the exam. And let me I got another stinger here I need to play.
Like what you hear? Show the love by giving us a review on iTunes.
All right, that's our iTunes stinger, and you can subscribe to this podcast in iTunes. It's all free. If you go to iTunes, search for Architect Exam Prep, we will come up, and if you can rate and review our podcast, that would be great. We'd really appreciate it. And Eric, anything else before we sign off?
No, I'm excited you're here. I'm excited you're listening to this. If you've made it this far, then you can probably go a little further and look at some of our free materials, and then just buy the damn thing, study, and pass it. And, good luck on the exams.
All right, Aubrey?
Good luck, stick with it, and just don't give up. That was my biggest mantra that got me through.
Alrighty, all good advice. I enjoyed this time, guys, that we just spent together, and to our listeners, I hope you tune in for more, and we look forward to doing this more.
Thanks for listening to the ARE Podcast. Be sure to visit architectexamprep.com and check out our other podcast episodes, video tips, and the ARE blog. Remember to plan, practice, and pass.